This video is based on the book NWO by Ralph Epperson. It was published in 1991, and most of the information comes from that book, and I've created for you a visual representation of the information found. But let's start out about what the NWO is. I haven't really found just a video that has all of this all together, so that is really the purpose of this video, and I hope that it can be helpful to you. So the NWO, it starts out with looking at the dollar bill, and it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, which in Latin means New World Order. Now in the esoteric world, secret societies and symbols have hidden meanings, and this means something that is meant to be understood only by a chosen few. The main goal of the NWO is to redistribute wealth from the haves to the have-nots. You're going to see a lot of this tied to communism and socialist ideology, which is very popular today in the college world. Their goal was to see changes in the family, gay marriages, the state will raise the kids, high divorce, and monogamy being slowly phased out. In the work sphere, the government would own all work. There'd be no private ownership. And in religion, their goal was to have believers in the God of the Bible killed or imprisoned. Now this new religion was supposed to be about worshiping man and his mind, and all will believe the new religion or be terminated. They have planned famines, depressions, and wars. So when we see government officials talking about this new world order, this is exactly what they're going for. You're going to hear a lot about Albert Pike, who was a Scottish Rite Freemason in the United States from 1850 to 1891, who wrote Morals and Dogma, and this has been used very heavily by the Masons. Manly P. Hall is another Mason we're going to quote from, and he was a 33rd degree Mason. A lot of this ties into the New Age movement, or the world religion, which is brought on by the Masons. Now in America, you have the Blue Lodge, which had 3 degrees, and then you would choose whether you wanted to do the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. Now the Scottish Rite had the southern and northern jurisdictions. Now the book is going to focus on the southern Scottish Rite, which is where you'll have the 32 degrees, and then the infamous 33rd degree is an honorary degree. You're going to hear about Helena Blavatsky, who was the founder of the New Age religion. She wrote something called The Secret Doctrine. She's also the founder of the Theosophical Society. And you're going to see this tie into occultism, occult practices. Now, going back to Pike, who was a 33rd degree Mason, in Morals and Dogma, he's quoted as saying, "Look on all the evils of the world and see that it is only the hour before sunrise, and the light is coming. New light breaking in the east." And Constance Cumby, who wrote Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, said that what he was referring to in these plans was that there would be a new world messiah. Okay, this was called Lord Maitreya. Now the government and religion would be under Lord Maitreya's 1,000-year reign.
To talk about Maitreya, right? Mm-hmm. This is the world teacher, who the Christians know as Christ.
Jesus was not, in the Christian terms, the Christ.
And this Maitreya is here now.
He is here.
In London.
He is both in London and in India.
He goes back and forth by airplane?
No, he's in 2 bodies.
Oh, he's in 2 bodies.
Yeah. We're talking about the masters.
Part of this plan also had a universal credit card system, which we can look today to say that Bitcoin would fit this nicely. The World Food Authority control the food supply. You would have a universal tax, a universal draft to root out Bible believers and God worship, to stamp out Christianity. This religion deifies Lucifer. So there's the New Age versus the Old Age. Religion of the Jews and Christians, right, which teaches humans have rights, family as a basic unit, mother, father, child, the right to private property, right to life, liberty, property, right, what the American nation was really founded upon. And this includes worship, the right to worship. Now, he goes to quote Nietzsche, who was a communist, and you'll hear a lot about Nietzsche in colleges. And it says, "I condemn Christianity. I accuse the church. It is to me the highest conceivable corruption." And this really brings in socialism, New Age, Freemasonry, and this war on Christians. New Ager Mankrishi Manish Yogi is a guru, and believe it or not, the Beatles' friend. He is quoted as saying, "There has not been and will not be a place for the unfit." And in their New Age worldview, the unfit means the old religion, the old way, or Christian, Judeo-Christian. The fit will lead, and if the unfit are not coming along, there's no place for them. The coming chaos, they're quoted as saying, is expected to kill 2.5 billion. And coming back to this idea of order out of chaos, that they will bring chaos into the world, but then bring the solution. A lot of this is going to be brought about due to an unacceptance of the new religion. So if you don't accept, you don't bow down, then you will be removed from their future utopian society.
Weeks ago, millennials, that's kids in their 20s and their 30s, and they ask them about religion, and they put a stat out there that I've heard many times before in the last few years. Millennials now, more than 50%, closing in on 75% of millennials say this. They say, "I'm more spiritual than I am religious." I'm more spiritual than I am religious. Millennials are, in fact, becoming what I like to call spiritual free agents. You know, millennials all follow the Dalai Lama on Twitter and Pope Francis on Twitter, as well as Oprah and a number of other spiritual leaders. Millennials probably go to yoga and try meditation. They read the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao and the Kabbalah.
So, in order to justify the murder of those refusing to conform to the new religion, their idea is to cleanse Earth of those who are going to get in the way of bringing about this utopia. Now, their new leader will be Lord Maitreya, and in the Bible, this is called the Antichrist. He's going to come and claim to be this wonderful, charismatic leader. He's going to unite all the religions of the world. He's going to bring everybody together in peace and unity. But as sure as they say peace, sudden destruction will come. So the Bible has been warning against this. And the leaders of the NWO are trying to bring it forward. For the Jews, they're expecting the Messiah. The Buddhists are waiting for the fifth Buddha. The Hindus are waiting for Krishna. And the Muslims are waiting for the Imam Mahdi. So this figure who is going to come is going to unite all of these religions. Now, Christ, according to New Agers, is just an office of spiritual hierarchy of masters. He is not the Messiah to them. He is not the Savior, but just another one of a spiritual leader. The mystery schools talk about these reborn experiences or baptism, and it's a form of a mystery religion. And that's why you'll see a lot of high-ranking Masons or people who are part of the Illuminati often do that symbol where you'll see them with their finger over their mouth. This is because this is about esoteric knowledge. They are not allowed to speak about this mystery religion. But really what it is secret Baal worship, right? You have Osiris, Tammuz. In Egypt, they believe that the pyramids were a source of initiation, that you would go in there to be initiated into these mystery schools, which is really initiating into the occult. And we'll get into Aleister Crowley and the like. But in Egypt, this is where the mysteries began. You have the Emerald Tablets, where a lot of this comes from, as above, so below. And other types of occultic practices and philosophies. The idea is to conceal the mysteries through symbols. Why? Because the idea is to conceal from the general public. And this offers a language for those who are qualified to understand it, to communicate right out in the open. A lot of these secret societies were in Italy, France, and Germany, and it will make a lot of sense as to some of the things that were going on, in World War II. And we're going to get into that a little later, but let's look at Nikolai Lenin. He was a communist, and he brought communism to Russia in 1973. And he said to use any lie to veil the truth, and that basic truth is a belief in the worship of Lucifer, also known as Satan or the devil. Now, all things done in darkness are revealed by the light. You have the moon, which is the sacred feminine, and the sun, which is the sacred masculine. Now, Lucifer is referred to in schools as the light, also known as the false light. Because the Bible refers to, if the light in you be darkness, how great is that darkness? So it depends on what you're allowing in, what kind of light, because it says also that Lucifer is transformed into an angel of light, and his ministers into, those of righteousness. So the Bible warns us about this again. Albert Pike, in Morals and Dogma, this father of Freemasonry, said that Lucifer was not an evil demon, but a force that can be used for good. Yes, they worship Satan. Now, many who have been involved in these lodges do not know the secret god, Lucifer, okay? They don't know that it's who they worship. They basically are lied to by the higher degrees until they get to a certain level, and then it's revealed that they actually worship Lucifer, which is usually levels 30 to 33. And in Morals and Dogma, they said that Adonai is the rival of Baal and Osiris. So they outright worship these ancient Babylonian gods and goddesses. Now, the sun deity is often killed, resurrected, and becomes a savior of people, right? Follows after the tenets of the Antichrist. Satan will mimic everything that God does. And when the Zeitgeist came out, they tried to say that, Jesus was following after these pagans, but really, Jesus is the first. Everything else is what Satan tries to mimic. And we can't confuse this with the true Jesus. Now, the idea for this New Age religion, this occult practice, worshiping of man and man's mind, is the idea to become godlike, to evolve and unify with divine consciousness. Their basic goal is to become gods. They believe once they get to level 33 that they are worthy of worship. And this is exactly what we are warned against in the Garden of Eden. When the forbidden fruit, the forbidden knowledge is eaten, he says, once you eat it in that day, you shall surely die. And the devil lied and said, you shall not surely die. So it's the same concept of you can still have life and you can be as a god. So please go back and revisit Genesis 3 and look at it with this understanding, and it'll make so much more sense. This is about human reasoning. Or that wisdom. And the Greeks were very popular in the philosophies and different types of doubting and philosophy. And so you'll learn about this a lot in school as well. But the Bible is a source of that free wisdom. This is enlightenment, the reasoning of man. So the idea of light worship is that you are to go to the light, then you are in the light, and then you have become the light, or you have become, and this word is tossed around a lot today, enlightened, okay? This enlightenment. And Revelation 22:16 says that Jesus, okay, is that true morning star or the light, but Satan comes to mimic. Now, the sons of light, or Lucifer, the sons of Lucifer, and then there's the sons of darkness, or the God of the Bible. So they refer to those who are sons of light as Lucifer's children, and sons of darkness as those who are the sons of the God of the Bible. Lucifer for them is the light bringer, when we know that Jesus is the true light that has come into the world. Now, the pyramids with Osiris, or the sun, right, is a temple for initiation into sun or Baal worship. Manly P. Hall is quoted as saying of the illumined of antiquity entered into portals as men, and they came forth as gods. English Buddhist Aleister Crowley had visited Cairo with his wife Rose Crowley, and they said this magic ritual prayer for invocation to Horus, the sun deity. Later, a being was said to have appeared to them saying the old age is passing and a new age is coming, and this new religion cannot come until the old, or Christianity, is smashed. Now, Aleister Crowley is responsible for having plenty of disciples, bringing in a lot of magic and occult. And a lot of famous people that you would be surprised actually follow after him. You have Marina Abramovich and her spirit cooking. And she is 100%, following after the occult and Satanism. And she is a disciple of Aleister Crowley. She is said to be that. And even going into today's modern celebrities, Lady Gaga has been said to be a disciple of Marina Abramovich.
question is by Marina Abramovic in New York.
I was just speaking about her today. I am obsessed with this woman. She is so incredible. She is so incredible. I went to go see her exhibit at MoMA. She is such an incredible piece of art in herself. And she is limitless. She is limitless in every way. Or around someone like Marina, that you, as myself, a self-proclaimed pop performance artist, want to go home and slit my wrists, and I am nothing. I have achieved no sense of art. She is so boundless, and she did a piece, I think it was in Germany, and she laid on a table and she put out all of these things, a gun, condoms, sleeping pills, booze, ropes, all sorts of things on this table. And there was a sign basically that just said that the museum goers could do as they pleased to her, and they were not responsible for anything that happened, that she would take full responsibility for anything that happened.
So we have to understand that these things are right in our face. And we're going to talk about obelisks, okay? This is a phallic symbol for Baal. You're going to see one in Washington, D.C. It is right in the Washington Monument. It was said to honor George Washington in 1833. However, this is a symbol of Baal worship. There is one in Central Park in New York City, and that one came directly from Alexandria, Egypt in 1881, and it is covered in hieroglyphs. It's believed to say that we worship the sun god as the divine or sacred light. There's another one in the Vatican in Rome, Italy, and it's right in St. Peter's Square. Something interesting to note is that the Pope, when he speaks, is always facing the obelisk. Karl Claudi was a Masonic writer, the initiate of old, and he saw the obelisk as the very spirit of the god he worshipped. This was his exact words. Now let's talk about the Illuminati, because this has been more popular in recent years. It was founded by Adam Weishaupt, who was an instructor at a Catholic university in Bavaria, run by Jesuits, or this order of priests. He was nicknamed Spartacus by the organization. In May 1st, 1776, there was this festival day that Pike speaks about to honor the sun. Now, Winston Churchill in 1920 made claims in a paper that this organization was moving toward a new world order. The Bavarian government had discovered the plans for world domination, this idea to destroy religions, to overthrow the government, and to abolish private property. They investigated into the group in 1786, and the report concluded that the goal was to abolish Christianity and overthrow civil government. But why May 1st? And what does this have to do with founding the Illuminati? Well, in 303 AD, the Roman edict issued by Diocletian, who was the worst of all of the emperors who persecuted Christians during that time, May 1st was the day of his abdication. So it's believed that this is a day that they used to honor him. Now, Diocletian required this uniformity of worship, okay, like almost one religion. And because Christians refused to bow down to the image of the emperor, they were heavily, heavily persecuted. So it would make sense that the Illuminati has this special day of May 1st tied to the day of his abdication to honor Diocletian. Illuminati members take this oath. They bind themselves to silence, to an unshaken loyalty to the order. Now, this is called the New Religion of Reason. And scripture says to be careful lest any man spoil you through vain philosophy. But what it does is it offers rulers worldly success. And it's the same thing that Satan offers to Christ. He says, if you bow down and worship me, I will give you all the kingdoms of the earth. And he wouldn't give them if they weren't his to give. But now we're seeing really how they are his. Nesta Webster concluded in a book for historian which aims at world revolution that the goal of the Illuminati is to abolish all ordered government, abolish all private property, abolish inheritance, patriotism, the family or marriage and education of children, and all religion. And this Masonic order of 1782 was used to cover the workings of the Illuminati. Now, where did they go? Okay, after they were discovered by the Bavarian government, because they were found out. They just moved to America. The first American lodge was in 1786, which was shortly after the American Revolution had come to the New World, or the United States of America. Let's talk about Karl Marx. Karl Marx was once baptized as a Protestant, and he later wrote a poem called The Pale Maiden. And he said, "Thus heaven I've forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell." Marx sought to war against biblical principles. Nearly all of his children committed suicide, okay? His wife even said that she longed for death. But what turned Marx from Christianity to Satan worship? We have to look at Marx's friend, Mikhail Bakovin, who wrote that Satan is the first free thinker and savior of the world. He frees Adam and impresses the seal of humanity and liberty on his forehead by making him disobedient. Lenin was quoted with saying that most communists are atheists and that we should have reason over belief. This idea is to want to liberate the mind, that God-fearers need to be liberated from belief in God and to be brought over to reasoning. Some communist victories were the Russian Revolution of 1917, there was between 21,500,000 and 45 million people who died while enforcing Marxist communism in practice. In China in 1923 to 1947, you also had a communist revolution where you saw up to 64 million deaths. And to look at even more atrocities, Hitler was the head of the Nazi Socialist Party. He joined the Thule Society, and which was all Satanists who practiced black magic. He was the prime mover of Nazism from the Germanic Order of 1912. Close friends with a man named Dietrich Eckart, he was one out of 7 of the original founding Nazi Party members, and Adolf called him the most important influence on his life. He believed in the arrival of Lord Maitreya, or the New Age Messiah. And we also see that 50 million died during World War II. All of this is really about bringing about their new world order. Stanley P. Hall, 33rd degree Mason, said in The Secret Destiny of America that he claims that the order was set between 1625 and 1675, and this was about the same time that the early settlers arrived in America. And this included Benjamin Franklin, who was of the Order of the Quest, and the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, aside from slavery, was considered not the work of societies, but the greatest setup or form of government penned by mankind. And the U.S. created a truly free republic. Well, that couldn't last very long, because once the Masons got their hands in this government, you started to see them everywhere. So talking about the seal, for example, of the United States, right? The eagle is a symbol of the quest. The pyramid is that of Lucifer worship or the mystery schools. And the three committees could not agree on the design of the official U.S. seal. Then eventually Charles Thompson designed it, and he was a Secretary of Congress. Now, the eagle is a symbol of reason, okay? So for the Egyptians, the eagle was an emblem of the wise and a symbol of Mendes, who represents the sun. And it's the only bird to fly or look at the sun. It has 9 tail feathers, and some believe that this is to be the 9 innermost members of the Great White Brotherhood or the Illuminati. And others say it may be 9 degrees in the York Rite of Freemasonry. There are 32 feathers on the right and 33 on the left, 32 depicting Scottish Rite degrees and 33 as the honorary 33rd degree. There are 13 stars and branches and arrows, etc., going back to this number of 13 or rebellion. Now, the eye is that their law is everywhere, okay, and to reveal secrets you cannot hide. This also has to do with watchfulness or the eye of God. But for them, it's not the God of the Bible. This is Osiris or the sun. Pike said in Morals and Dogma that Osiris was the sun, the source of light and principle of God. Now, the Treasury Department made the pyramid an unfinished pyramid because they said that there was still work to be done, so there's no capstone, and that the work had not been finished yet of creating this new world order. Now, the Union itself was 13 states, right? Rebellion. And this esoteric number is assigned again to Satan. Henry A. Wallace, who was the vice president of FDR's first administration, he was to put the 2 seals on the back of the dollar. And he was connected to the white Russian mystic Helena Petronova Blavatsky, who was a big name in occult practice. He and Roosevelt were 32nd degree Masons. Alice Bailey, who is a New Age leader, said that Masonic Freemasonry is intended to be a training school for the coming advanced occultists, and occult meaning hidden, secret, esoteric. Most Masons, as stated previously, are lied to by other Masons, but the God worship is Lucifer. And this world plan, or that you're a friend of the world, the Bible says that you're an enemy of God. So admission into these lodges, or something known as the celestial lodge above, is through a reminder of purity. So you're going to see this white apron lambskin, and if you look at this photo of George Washington, you'll see that he has the symbol of masonry and has that white apron as well. Now, it's a religion that follows a set of beliefs, and the belief is in a supreme being known as the light or Lucifer. And they kind of set up their unholy trinity, or the 3 greatest lights for them, which is the sun Osiris, the moon Isis, and Mercury as Horus. And that's known as the Egyptian Trinity. But the student of Masonry would conclude that one, to follow the ancient mysteries, sun worship refers to Lucifer, the fallen angel of the Bible. that it should be concealed by changing his name. So they concealed the truth of who he is worshipped by lying to the other brothers in the lodge, denying that they worship Satan. William Preston Vaughan, who was a former member and is now a New York minister, cried out against this. He warned the United States in 1830 that if the lodge went unchecked, the U.S. would have a Masonic monarchy for its government, a Masonic church, a Masonic way to a Masonic heaven, blood and massacre and destruction to all who subscribe not to the support of the monarch. What are some major symbols? Well, the serpent, the snake, the dragon. The serpent for them is a source of wisdom. There's serpent kings founded in the mystery schools, which later become Egyptian and Brahmin mysteries, with serpents as their symbol. And for them, they believe that they are the true sons of light. There's the brazen serpent, which is symbolic of being bold or disrespectful, as a type of mediator and promise of redemption. The Knights Templar talks about worshiping the Baphomet, and some say that the Baphomet is the Ancient of Days, or the creator. And the serpent is this symbol for Masonic worship. The cornucopia is an ancient symbol of plenty, and the serpent as Satan. Now they also like to use the star. The shooting or falling star, Lucifer, known as being a star falling from heaven. The Illuminati founder, Professor Adam Weishaupt, associated closely with the sun as this life-giving power, a manifestation of the visible image or sign of truth or source of light. Now, Pike and the sun was a symbol of deity to be worshipped. For the Phoenicians and the Egyptians, they were the first to give deity to the sun. And worship of the sun began by convincing common people that the sun would only return if it was prayed to. So the sun was necessary for life, and people did so, right? You needed the sun. So they began to perform rituals to pay tribute to the sun, and it would come back each and every day. But Pike connects the sun to Osiris and the three lights in Mason temple: Osiris, Isis, Horus.
American, I will keep America moving forward, always forward, for a better America, for an endless, enduring dream and 1,000 points of light. This is my mission, and I will complete it.
And then in the East, it's where people know that their rights are, consciousness of dignity. The sun's rays are there. And so for them, the East is where their God rises, and the North is where the true God, our true God, the God of the Bible, sits. John Quincy Adams, who was the 6th president, said in 1833, "I do conscientiously and sincerely believe that the order of Freemasonry, if not the greatest, is one of the greatest moral and political evils under which the Union is now laboring." So we have been warned against it time and time again. Dr. Robert Waltz, who was a fellow 33rd degree Mason, said that Pike was the world's greatest Masonic scholar. Now we know that Morals and Dogma was read by Masons. It was given as a gift, and it was considered a study material. So if you have a chance to read it, it reveals so much about what they believe and what their goal is for the country. But U.S. presidents were Masons, and they had to take Morals and Dogma. And they also had to take order from higher Masons such as Pike. So there's an oath that says, "Furthermore, I do promise and swear that I will obey All regular signs, summonses, or tokens given, handed out, sent, or thrown to me from the hand of a brother, master mason, or from the body of a just and lawfully constituted lodge of such. Now, if you look at all of the capitals, it says, I do promise, swear that I will obey all summonses given to me from the hand of a brother or master mason. So this meant that the presidents had to take orders from Albert Pike himself. So yes, when we say there's no such thing as democracy, there's no such thing as democracy. In the Bible, the story of Hiram, he was sent to help build Solomon's temple. And Solomon's temple is very important for the Masons as well. But he was killed by 3 ruffians. Now the Masons see this story as symbolic. Hiram for them was a master mason and represents mankind. And the first who attacked Hiram was at the south gate of the temple. And the instrument used to attack was rule. And in Greek, rule means canon. So this is associated with canon law to regulate the conduct of the people by the church. So the first jubela, or canon law, is associated with tyranny in the church. The second is the western gate, or the square, which represents a merger of civil and religious power. The idea is to control man's emotions by telling him what to do and believe, because Hiram was struck near the heart, or the seat of affections, and this is known as jubelo. And this is about ignorance and can also be associated with property. And the third jubilim was killed in the east gate by a blow to the head, or the seat of the intellect. And this was represented as intolerance, fanaticism, or overall religion. So these concealed symbols of the church and state is a fearing of the power of man's reason. So what the Masons are telling you, that their enemy is the church. Because of that, you must conceal crimes of fellow Masons, including blackmail, murder, defrauding people. And Masons, if they're on a jury, for example, they are to vote not guilty, even to the point of committing perjury. Albert Pike, Albert Mackey, Manly P. Hall, said that the smallest but most powerful inner circle was this 33rd degree council in Washington, D.C., which claims to be the mother council of the world and the mother jurisdiction of the world. They are often represented through a phoenix, which is another symbol of the 33rd degree, and is represented on the Morals and Dogma cover, worn by 33rd degree Masons in jewelry, and it's considered reborn wisdom, symbolizing the sun, the rebirth of man into a new religion where wisdom and reason become God. Now, the concept is to bring to ashes the old way, or the religion or belief in God, and the rise of its new religion with man as its center, to destroy the institutions of organized religion and destroy national governments. Now, the 33rd degree motto, Ordo ab Chaos, or order out of chaos, is presented to the world. Chaos because of religion, but will soon be made right. So they blame all chaos on religion, although they are the ones causing the chaos. And they're also the ones that will provide for you the said solution. Author of The Deadly Deception, Mr. Shaw, was actually about to become a 33rd degree Mason, and instead became a Christian in between degrees 32 and 33, but he proceeded with interviews and exposed them later on at this meeting of the 33rd degree. He said that there were very prominent men present, including a Scandinavian king, 2 former US presidents, and an internationally prominent evangelist, 2 other prominent clergymen, and a very high official of the federal government. He's now a minister, and he said he left, and he is quoted as saying, "I feel a duty to warn others to avoid the satanic trap of Freemasonry." Freemasons often take on a humanist philosophy. Humanism is basically New Age and communism brought together. This is a modern, non-theistic, rationalist philosophy. And what they believe is that science and economic changes will show that religion no longer has the answer to man's problems. Humanism has the new answers, that it is time to move on from religion, that humanism is the new religion to replace the old. So for the humanist, the universe, or self-existing, this is self-existing and is not created. It takes on an atheist belief system that there is no God, or that man emerged as a result of a continuous process such as evolution. No prayer answering God exists for them, so no God created moral absolutes. And in 1933, the first Humanist Manifesto was signed by 34 men. One of those men was Professor John Dewey of Columbia University, who is known as the father of progressive education, and Lester Mandel, who's the brother of the vice president. And in 1974, John Dewey named the most influential figure of American leaders as educators, was a socialist, a communist, an atheist, and he believed in evolution. The manifesto stated, "Faith in a prayer, hearing God, assumed to love and care for persons, to hear and understand prayers, and to be able to do something about them, is an unproved and outmoded faith. That no deity will save us and we must save ourselves." So he believed in evolution, and this is part of the humanist religion, because for them, man is an animal. And Karl Marx declared himself humanist. He said free education for all children in public schools. And excessive population growth must be checked. And this is a lie, okay? There's this appearance that we're overpopulated, but that's just because of living in cities and largely populated areas. But the whole population growth, excessive population growth, is a lie. And there is a well-known humanist, Madalyn Murray O'Hair, and in 1963 she successfully eliminated prayer and Bible reading in American public schools. She's quoted as saying, "Religion is the wildest form of insanity. I would turn every church into a home for the aged and outpatient clinic. Christianity, which is anti-science, anti-life, anti-sex, anti-woman, anti-freedom, anti-peace, is detrimental to the United States."
Past 11 o'clock, 25 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court handed out a ruling that's still being discussed today. The court said that public schools could no longer allow prayer in the classroom. Since that time, a number of other lawsuits have been filed seeking to have that ruling overturned, but each suit has failed. The original suit was filed 25 years ago by atheist Madeline Murray O'Hare, and her son John Murray was named as the plaintiff.
This morning, Miss O'Hare joined live from the new headquarters of the American Atheist Movement off Cameron Road. Thank you for joining us. First of all, Miss O'Hare, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. What do you...
You've just ruined a television shot.
Now,
People.
can you hear us now, Mr.
I
O'Hare?
am going to bring God down upon their heads.
All right, thank you very much. What prompted you to file that lawsuit that in the ruling 25 years ago?
Well, the reason for it was that my son was coerced to listen to Bible being read in the public schools, and also forced to recite the King James Version, the Protestant version of the Lord's Prayer in the public school every single morning.
Ms. O'Hare, in the 25 years since that ruling, there have been several challenges against it. Do you feel like the courts may be softening up and will allow eventually prayer back into the classroom?
No, I do not. I think that the best shot has been made that can be shot by the religious community, and that they have failed consistently.
Constantly on the move, Madeline pursued new targets. She championed masturbation. She ridiculed the Pope. She challenged the words "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance and "in God we trust" on dollar bills. Grabbing big TV ratings, she became a scandalous demon on the talk shows.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Madeline Murray O'Hare. We knew if we were going to succeed with this daytime television show, we better have something that will compel the viewer. And my first guest was Madeline Murray O'Hare. You can imagine. I mean, I found Elvis. I mean, this woman drew a very large crowd, and that's what I was paid to do. Although I thought her message was very, very important.
Your grief is not assuaged as would be the religionist who believes that there is another place where happiness will again be abundant.
Oh, that's a big lollipop.
I know you don't believe that.
We must look at them, and we never say they've passed over, or they're gone to their reward, or they have been transported, or anything else. People are dead.
Madeline could be very, very unpleasant and sarcastic. Almighty God, she pronounced God, God. You go ahead and pray, and she'd laugh at people who prayed.
You're going to spend your whole life preparing to meet the Lord. Boy, you folks are crazy as hell.
And she seemed to get the biggest kick out of the Christians who called the program and wished that God would damn her in hell forever in boiling oil. That just thrilled her. That was a success. That was her proof that religion was a form of mental illness.
Hitting the road in the 1970s, Madeline introduced a whole generation to the seditious ideas of atheism.
She considered herself a Marxist. She is the one who used the term separation of church and state, though there is no such clause. These were just words from Thomas Jefferson, and these are not even in the Constitution. The First Amendment reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." So there's no national religion. But then the 10th Amendment says that powers not delegated to the U.S. by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Humanism is declared a religion in 1961 in the case of Turcaso versus Watkins. So yes, according to the United States, humanism and their beliefs of rational thought and evolution and so on is actually a religion. It says, and it's quoted as saying, among religions in this country, which do not teach what would generally be considered a belief in the existence of God, are Buddhism, Taoism, ethical culture, secular humanism, and others. Now, the president of the American Humanist Association wrote, humanism is a religion without a God, divine revelation, or sacred scriptures. So the person who even, is responsible for being the head of the association, it calls it a religion. And this religion is based on communism, evolution, and atheism. Now, to combat moral absolutes, there has to exist, for example, murder is always wrong, and this is what the Bible teaches. They practice something known as situation ethics, and this is a system of ethics according to which moral rules are not absolutely binding, but may be modified in the light of specific situations. So, what we are forced to practice when presented with certain news segments, as an example. Supports the idea that the end justifies the mean. So, such as mass murders in Russia and China that would bring in communism. For them, communism was the greater good, so the millions and millions of people who died, it was justified for them, where the end for them would justify the means. And this is a form of practicing situation ethics. When we watch something on the news, we're kind of practicing situation ethics in a way, because we're saying, oh, well, it's okay, if this person, did this thing because this thing happened. But the Bible teaches it's always wrong to murder. It's always wrong to steal. It's always wrong to lie. Nietzsche, who said so-called evil was good, and what was habitually believed to be good was evil. And in scripture, it does say that there will come a day where evil will be called good and good will be called evil. Well, Friedrich Nietzsche, in the Genealogy of Morals, said that exact thing. The next attack you'll see is on the family. And the court's expansion of this term family or monogamy, which once was a male, female, and the children, is now considered two males or two females. No longer male, female, child. And it's rare and only observed by the Judeo-Christians that you would have this one partner for life, and it would be of the opposite sex. Now, the communist agenda is to destroy the family unit. Marx is quoted as saying the goal of the party is the abolition of the family. Now, the children are being raised by the state, okay? And Cuba is an example of this, where you had a high level of prostitution due to poverty, and it destroyed heterosexual relationships. Frequent marriage and divorce was rife throughout Cuba. There was forced labor. They would have half days of school, which were optional. In China, communism was enforced as well, and husbands and wives were separated into two different barracks, and they were only able to meet one time a week for 2 hours. The children were taken away from parents and placed in government-run nurseries. Children's names were taken away and they were replaced with a number. There was no such thing as individual identity. They needed permission to marry, and they were told how many children that they could have. Birth control was given out in the streets, and one-child rule in China led to infanticide, where there was an international killing of babies. In 1980, a Chinese newspaper said that 8 female infants were found dead, abandoned in front of the local party's headquarters, and most of them had been suffocated. The girls mostly were killed because males were able to carry along the family name. So this one-child rule was the same murdered first female, and some would keep the child, and this was something known as Red China. They would hide them, and they would be unregistered children that were Chinese born but unregistered. And abortion was widely popular in China. And if you wanted to keep more than one child, they would charge you an insane amount of money for your food or grain rations. Now, Chinese girls were forced to work in the fields full-time and do all the housework, and this resulted in a high number of suicides. Infanticide took place in the USSR too. 9 out of 10 of the first pregnancies ended in the legal killing of an unborn child or abortion. And it was justified by life does not begin at birth. Sir Francis Crick, British medical doctor and socialist and signer of Humanist Manifesto 2, said no newborn infant will be declared human unless it has passed certain tests regarding its genetic endowment. If it fails these tests, it forfeits the right to live. So basically, this man was saying you can declare a child defective and then take away its right to life. Another method used by the elite to control and destroy the family unit in terms of money is inflation. When they would increase the supply, the money supply, by causing prices to go up, economists would then blame the public. But the real culprit is the privately owned Federal Reserve System and the private banking establishment, which was signed into place for the Federal Reserve in 1913 on Jekyll Island, which was never voted upon. And it's this ability to create inflation, and they can do it as they choose. What this did was it threw more women into the workforce and made sure that they were not able to care for their children as much. And so as a result, they would search for employment, and government schools were created where the government can teach whatever they want to the children. So the mom sees less and less of her own child. Now, the banks, this includes the right to earn property. Okay, so you'll see that what happens is now we have stocks. Like, our economy is based off of debt. We are no longer backed by gold, but by debt. And so what they'll do is they'll inflate the prices of things, is one way to get more of the wealth back, or they'll crash the economy in itself, buy out stocks at a super low price, and then leave you bankrupt, leave you with a foreclosure on your home, unable to pay for your home. And this is a way that they take away more of your right to own property. And this is something that we're seeing them do over and over again, and the governments consistently bail out the banks. But this is more in a result of getting the family to be broken away from each other, to go out and to work even more and even harder. And marriage, for example, in a communist country at the time, such as the USSR, was the least desired thing. There were high pressures on the wife to work and to care for the family, and there was no time to spend with the husband or the children. So there was a high divorce rate. Not only does the government control the money supply, the government controls the rate of inflation, how much prices things are, and how well the actual dollar does. You have now given them the right to educate your children, where children spend more hours in school than they do with their own parents at home. And this attack on education in 1984 is a perfect example, where there were several parents who were arrested for removing kids from public schools. And in their freedom of religion, it was to teach them at home. They said, we have freedom of religion, we are removing them, and we're going to teach them at home. And the Masons, communists, humanists, illuminists, whatever you want to call them, basically want to train the children in these government-run schools. And so they made it illegal for that to happen. Now, the founder of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, said that we must win the people in every corner. We must acquire the direction of education, of church management, of the professorial chair, and of the pulpit. So Marx in the Communist Manifesto said that free education for all children in public schools. Now, the view of education is a vehicle to re-educate young children away from religion and a belief in God. Henry C. Clausen, a 33rd degree Mason, had Masonic support, said, hands off our public schools. Keep church and state forever separated. Stay American. Some parents opted into private education, yet they will still be paying for public schools even if they don't have a child that goes there. education was believed to have taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's what it should have been for. But in 1979, education in the United States was reported as not even doing this. Okay, there was a case where a woman sued a school for lack of education. Her son graduated high school and he could not read or write. She sued the school and the judge ruled that they have no legal duty to educate. So nobody even knows what the purpose of these schools are. The judge ruled that they had no legal duty to even educate the children and that the purpose of school is unknown. Now, due to this mess, children are now called learning disabled, or are titled as having minimal brain dysfunction. And a lot of this comes about with giving them Ritalin, or on the street it's known as speed. So we can already see, that the public sector, what's been going on, this attack on the family, that it's huge, and it's the attack on children as well. Now let's talk about Russian laws. Because the communist nation had to register their churches, and this control of their churches through regulations. Now, free nations do not have to do this. America has registered churches. There's something called the 5013C, which is for non-profit organizations, which makes you tax exempt. But there are church requirements, so this makes your institution have a status known as incorporated, or that your church is now a corporation and it is under the authority of the state. So the creator of the church is the state, and the state is the sole authority or sovereign head of church, subject to the laws of the state, created for the benefit of the public, and state franchise, privilege granted by the state. Okay, this includes ministry and mission. They can say what you can and cannot preach, including what you're not allowed to sway a congregation to vote a certain way or for a certain, politician or party. And we're seeing that in today's churches, where we're not allowing God to be the sovereign head of the church, but it's really the state. Russian Commissioner of Education, Lunkarsky, said, "We hate Christians and Christianity. Even the best of them we must consider our worst enemies." Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was living in the USSR and is now living in the United States, said, "In my country, the communist powers took military steps against the Christian faith. Millions of peasants were slaughtered in order to eradicate faith from the roots of the people. Millions of hours of propaganda time were used in order to burn the faith from the hearts of the children. Despite this, communism has not destroyed the Christian faith. Christianity went through a period of decline, but it is now growing." The political atheist literature maintains that Marxism continues what Christianity began, that it makes possible what Christianity failed to achieve, but this is a sleight of hand. Socialism, or Russian communism, is in fact absolutely opposed to Christianity. So they're outright telling you. And what we're starting to see here in America is the beginning of communism. So the goal is to destroy national boundaries, to create one government, one, monetary system, one religion. And the Bible has been warning against this for years and years and years. And Manly P. Hall said that the day is coming when they, or Christians, will be an absolute remnant of the past. We are approaching a nobler era when nations shall be no more, when the whole earth shall be under one order, one government, one administrative body. So the enemy has been identified. The belief in Lucifer, the god of the New World Order, the New Age, based in the belief of man and man's mind or reason. Now, what does the New World Order offer us? It offers us the abolition of family, children raised by a society through the government. It abolishes the right to private property, which is now owned by government. That there's no more right to worship. Religious people are subject to deprogramming. Those who won't change beliefs are forced into concentration camps or killed because God worship will be a crime. Borders will not exist, and all private decisions are made by others. The NWO is said to have begun in the year 2000, and this was the date of inception. And the Reagan-Bush connection is where you're going to see this. In April 1988, the New Age magazine cover showed Masons C. Fred Kleinkat, who was a sovereign grand commander of the southern jurisdiction, Francis G. Paul, commander of the northern jurisdiction, and Varus King, who's an imperial potentate of the ancient Arabic order of nobles in the mystic shrine of North America, gave Reagan a certificate of honor thanking him for working for the common good and the title of Honorary Scottish Rite Mason. And in August 1988, he made an address to the Republican Convention in New Orleans, and Reagan spoke about Bush, who was his vice president, and said, "With Bush, I know we'll approach the new millennium. With George Bush, we'll have a nation confidently willing to take its leadership into the uncharted reaches of a new age."
This is an historic moment. We have in this past year made great progress in ending the long era of conflict and Cold War. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Bush in 1989 said that the new world was coming 11 short years from now. And if we fast forward to looking at its inception in 2001, the World Trade Center was abolished during George Bush Jr.'s presidency. And there's many videos and documentaries that you can look at about how this was a planned event. Order out of chaos. And in case you haven't realized something, the new building that erected itself after this happened is called the One World Trade Center, and it took 11 years to build. Look at there's something called I Pet Goat 2. It's all about this stuff. I would suggest taking a look at it. It talks about everything we talked about, the coming of this Lord Maitreya or the Antichrist. It talks about the Masons and planned events and things like that. But God tells us what our solution is. And 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." We need to be searching for the truth. We need to be speaking this truth. We have been so lied to in so many ways. And I want you to be aware of these symbols. I want you to be aware of these things in our world and to be awake and open to them, to understanding that, yes, Satan is the god of this world. He is the god that most people worship. And the Masons tell you outright that that is the god that they worship, and that they are in control of everything. But we know that God is greater, and we know that all these things are leading up to the eventual persecution of Christians, where history is going to repeat itself. But we have to warn people, we have to be aware, and we have to know that the God of the Bible is on our side. Please share this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and let's wake up, church. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.
Leaders and dignitaries of the European Union, representatives of our NATO alliance, distinguished guests. We meet here at a moment of testing for Europe and the United States. and for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Throughout human history, societies have grappled with fundamental questions of how to organize themselves, the proper relationship between the individual and the state, the best means to resolve inevitable conflicts between states. And it was here in Europe, through centuries of struggle, through war and enlightenment, repression and revolution, that a particular set of ideals began to emerge. The belief that through conscience and free will, each of us has the right to live as we choose. The belief that power is derived from the consent of the governed, and that laws and institutions should be established to protect that understanding. And those ideas eventually inspired a band of colonialists across an ocean, and they wrote them into the founding documents that still guide America today, including the simple truth that all men and women are created equal. But those ideals have also been tested here in Europe and around the world. Those ideals have often been threatened by an older, more traditional view of power. This alternative vision argues that ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs, that order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign. Often, this alternative vision roots itself in the notion that by virtue of race or faith or ethnicity, some are inherently superior to others, and that individual identity must be defined by us versus them, or that national greatness must flow not by what people stand for, but what they are against. In so many ways, the history of Europe in the 20th century represented the ongoing clash of these two sets of ideas, both within nations and among nations. The advance of industry and technology outpaced our ability to resolve our differences peacefully. And even among the most civilized of societies on the surface, we saw a descent into barbarism.